Hey yo, what it do, what it do? It's your boy Q, and 5 of my 8 playoff picks have made it here from our VCT Champions Pickems, and that's even with all the hecticness that broke out in that group stage. We had Trace Esports not only turning heads and qualifying for playoffs, but in that #1 seed as well. We had both Gen G and PRX taking early exits, meaning they're not in the playoffs as well. But now that we do have our final 8 teams set in this double elimination bracket, our 2024 VCT season all comes down to this: 14 more series to crown ourselves a champion for 2024. So without further ado, I bring to you Marshall. Anyways, let's go ahead and get down and do what it do. Our last VCT Pickems for the 2024 season. Like I said, we're set up in this playoff bracket here, so let's go ahead and get down to it. We don't have times as far as when these matchups are happening just quite yet as of recording it. This is Sunday evening. I literally watched the draw for the brackets a few hours ago. I wish I could say that I'd be partying, like watch partying these games like we do for ALGS and RLCS over here on the channel, but like, I'm not cool enough. Maybe one day. While I'm not a big fan of starting with a lot of regional action like we do see, 3 regional matchups to start off our playoff bracket. At least the good news is that means we won't be seeing as much of the playoff or those regional matchups to be able to be elimination games during the playoffs. But let's get started with our first non-regional quarterfinal matchup, and that's DRX versus Sentinels. They haven't played each other, at least as of here recently, and it's kind of 2 teams with similar tales, right? Getting a little bit more momentum towards the back end of the season, although I would say probably more so for Sentinels. Obviously, their strength was in the beginning of the season when you think back to that kickoff and split 1, right? But, well, maybe more so to the kickoff, not so much split 1. But when you talk about for DRX, man, they made some changes to their roster. They've looked really strong here over the course of the of stage 2, and also during the playoffs as well. I think I gotta roll with DRX with this one. I feel like for me, DRX is gonna be the team that really kind of steps things up on this back end here. Yeah, give me DRX, and let's go ahead and send Sentinels down to that lower bracket. It's kind of crazy to think that we've got DRX, Sentinels, we've got G2, Leviatan. So 2 of those 4 teams are guaranteed an early exit down into that lower bracket. Sentinels are going to be the first ones there. Now, I know Trace Esports has turned some heads. They took the #1 seed, but when we look at the previous matchups, since this is a regional matchup between Trace Esports and EDG, EDG has swept the last 4. Matter of fact, they've only dropped 1 of the last 6. Good news is at least one Chinese team is going to pick up a playoff win here due to the fact that they play each other in that first round. I think it's going to be EDG. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Trace Esports because they do have that 1 win in the last 6. I just feel like EDG is on a mission. They have the ability to potentially get their highest finish that we have seen on the grandest of stages. This would be a really good time for them to pull it off. So I think it at least starts with a win for them against Trace Esports. When we kind of move forward though in that upper bracket quarterfinal games, we've got G2 versus Leviatan. They have split their series so far this year, 2-2. Of course, Leviatan did win the most recent matchup, which was the America's Grand Finals during stage #2. I know that was technically like the first time that they've beat them in the last 3. I do think Leviatan has really been able to kind of find that extra gear, and I do believe that this is going to be the event where Aspas really is able to solidify himself as like the GOAT of Valorant. So give me Leviatan taking down G2 in what should be a banger of a series. Also, honestly, when I say a banger of a series, I don't know if there's a series that I'm going to see over the course of these top 8 teams that isn't going to be a banger, but you know what I mean. When we look at Team Heretics versus Fnatic, also just like that regional matchup between G2 and Leviatan, they've split their series 2-2 so far this year. Fnatic, like Leviatan, did win the most recent matchup between these 2, which was the grand finals of a playoffs, but that was during stage 1. And I think because Fnatic had that win during stage 1 where they had only just started turning things around, and when you look at Fnatic during stage 2, they almost remind you of the Fnatic of old, just sitting on top of EMEA and maybe even looking to solidify themselves as really the dynasty of VCT in its short history. As much as I would love to see the story of Team Heretics, Benji Fish going from Fortnite World Cup 5 years ago to potentially being able to call themselves a champion in VCT, what a great story that would be. I just don't see it happening, not especially against Fnatic in that upper bracket quarterfinals. So that does give us 4 teams advancing in the upper bracket semifinals. We're gonna go ahead and just stay in the upper bracket here until we get to the end, and then we'll figure out that lower bracket, obviously, except for that grand finals there. DRX and EDG have faced off twice during the off season going into this year, and they split the series. Of course, with that being the case, EDG has not seen the new DRX roster. And especially since DRX has seemed to be rolling. And as much as I would love to see EDG continuing to grind things out in this upper bracket, I do feel like this is a spot where DRX is going to take the dub and send EDG down to that lower bracket there. So when we talk about our other upper bracket semifinals, Leviatan versus Fnatic, no previous matchups between these rosters, but let's not forget, I mentioned earlier how this is going to be an opportunity for Aspas to really be able to solidify himself as the GOAT of VCT. Aspas has always had the number of Fnatic. I think he's going to be able to do the same thing here at Champs in 2024, but under a new banner of Leviatan, and going to be sending Fnatic down to that lower bracket, which then does in turn give us DRX versus Leviatan in that upper bracket final. They also have not played each other recently, so we don't have anything to really base that off of. But when we look at the last 12 series that both of these teams have played, it's kind of two different things, man. Leviatan, they're 10-2 in their last 12. DRX, they're 7-5, just barely over 500. Now, of course, DRX has been on a little bit of an upswing here as of late. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see DRX pull this off, but I do feel like this is going to be a Leviatan win, which is going to be sending DRX down to that lower bracket final. So we do have Leviatan waiting up in that grand finals there. Let's see who joins them through the lower bracket. Let's start off in, of course, that lower bracket round number 1. Sentinels versus Trace Esports. Sorry, Trace Esports. I'm happy that you guys had a nice story to get here. I just think Sentinels still have a little bit more of their story to tell as well. There's no really like mutual games between these two. Can't really say much as far as what we should be expecting. I think the questions was, what Sentinels team were we going to see show up to Seoul, right? I think it's the right Sentinels, so I do think they take the dub here. However, if it's the Sentinels that we have seen that are more in the valleys during this roller coaster of a ride that has been the VCT season for the Sentinels, don't be surprised to see Trace Esports take an upset there. Although, isn't an upset? I mean, it's technically a 1 versus a 2. Y'all know what I mean. Our other lower bracket round 1 game, G2 Esports versus Team Heretics. G2 technically lost to Team Heretics in Shanghai in the lower bracket as well. Of course, that was during the lower bracket final. Since then, though, G2's lone loss was to Leviatan. Y'all already see how I feel about Leviatan, having them sit up in that grand final spot, waiting to see who is going to be taking them on. G2 had also won twice previously to Shanghai, right? So, I mean, they've got the experience. They've shown that they know how to take this team down. I hate to do it to Heretics, man, because I would really love to see Heretics tell their story. I would love the hype around Benji Fish. And, of course, obviously, there are other great players on the roster. I don't want to make it seem like Benji Fish is the all-star, because I definitely don't feel like that's the case. But it is the biggest story when we talk about for Team Heretics. But, unfortunately, their run ends in the playoff bracket after 2 straight losses. Now let's go to that lower bracket, round number 2. Fnatic versus Sentinels here. Haven't played each other since lock-in of last year. So they haven't played each other since So they haven't played each other since lock-in of last year. So we don't really know much as far as their, couple recent roster changes, some changes to their strategies, obviously, as well. And Fnatic do seem to be the Fnatic of old. So I think even if Sentinels come in on their A game, I just feel like Fnatic, again, I feel like they're in this position where they know that they have the ability to really solidify their legacy in VCT. So let me go ahead and at least see them qualifying for a top 4. When we think about that there, that does mean in our top 4, we've got a chance at a 4-region top 4, just like we had in RLCS, which I think is great for the esport. That would require EDG taking down G2. Can EDG give us our first 4-region Final 4, or can G2 go from Ascension to top 4 in back-to-back lands? Last time these two squared off against one another during the group stages, G2 did win. But I think that's in part because EDG did fumble on Haven. There in that second half, I think they were up, what, like 11-8? Something like that. And then they allowed G2 to just rattle off round after round, being able to pull off the comeback on Haven. I think it's going to be EDG this time around, and that would give us our 4-region Final 4. That would be amazing to see our first one that we've had. I think first one that we've had in VCT history. Maybe someone comment in the comments below if I'm wrong on that, but I do believe it'd be the first 4-region Final 4. Leviatan for Americas, DRX for Pacific, Fnatic for EMEA, and EDG for China. And of course, that does start off in that lower bracket round 3, Fnatic versus EDG. And the closest thing that we've seen to a dynasty in VCT, can they come out on top here, or can EDG shock the world? Because I feel like if this were to happen, Fnatic would be the clear-cut favorite, especially with the way that they've been looking lately. But if EDG wins, they move themselves 1 game away from their best placement at LAN. They'd be tying their best placement of the top 3. You know what? As much as I would love the storyline of seeing China be able to really kind of crack the code, unfortunately, I think the road ends here for EDG. Give me Fnatic in lower bracket round 3. So that's going to give us DRX versus Fnatic there in our lower bracket final. They haven't played each other since home ground and, of course, since champions of last year. So Fnatic, they also have not seen this DRX roster. And while I do think a trophy lift would help Fnatic basically solidify their spot as the dynasty in VCT's history, I just don't think it happens here. I think we're going to see DRX try and get that rematch in the grand finals, and y'all already know how I feel about rematches in the grand finals when it's two teams, especially when they just face off in that upper bracket final. A chance at redemption, because I do anticipate that this upper bracket final is going to be one of those matches that goes the distance. All of the matches, all of the maps going like 18, 20, 22 rounds, being really, really close. But do we think that they can come back and beat Leviatan? Or does Leviatan, led by Aspas, does Aspas prove that he is the GOAT of VCT? I think I gotta roll with Leviatan here, man. I feel like DRX, the story has been great. And man, imagine VCT being able to say that a Pacific team has not only won an international LAN this year, but to be able to say that they are the champs as well. A different team even than the one that won their first international LAN would be huge for the region, because I do think that would show the strength of VCT Pacific. But I called at the top of the year that I thought that this Leviatan squad would be the best team in the world. I think I'm going to have to stick with it. Leviatan on top, going to be a banger of a grand finals. Hopefully it goes the distance. But yeah, give me Leviatan as our champs for 2024. So when we look at as far as what that would give us, Leviatan in first, that gives us DRX in second, Fnatic in third, and EDG in fourth place. So let me know what you guys think. How are you feeling about that top 4? What picks did I get right? What picks did I get wrong? Of course, we always do Pickems heading into a big event like this, or sometimes we just do like those tier lists as well, kind of like we did as far as for Apex Legends, since Pickems are a little bit harder there. But if you guys enjoyed the vibes over here and you've made it this far in the video, first off, we do talk a lot of VCT over here on the channel, but we're esports junkies, man. We talk VCT, ALGS, RLCS, so feel free to take a look around the page, man. We've also got the podcast as well, where we talk all those titles, as well as kind of just the generic lay of the land when it comes to esports as well. And we're trying to chase down that first 500 subs, because of course that puts us halfway to that first 1,000 subs over here on the channel. We're getting close to that first 500. We're like 40 away or something like that. So if you enjoyed the vibes, man, do me a favor. Of course, those likes and comments help me out as far as pushing the content out to more people. But we're 40 away, man. So smack that subscribe button, turn those notifications on. That way we can catch you back for weekly esports content. Until we do catch y'all back over here for the next one, man, don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard. All right, y'all? It's your boy Q, signing out.